Hey everyone, today I'm going to tell you the origins that I could find of all the city names that were given to me at this point about a month ago. I'm going to go east to west on this. Um, so I did my best to look up where these cities were and actually place it east to west. If you find a discrepancy, feel free to let me know. Not that that's super important. It doesn't really matter what order I do them. But the first city that was recommended, east to west, was Owangapo. Owangapo in the Philippines. This today, it was a American naval base for a long time, so it's a fairly major city now because of American imperialism. So it's an interesting city just to look at its Wikipedia page. But the name is double interesting. It comes from a Sambal phrase, Olo Nin Apo, which means head of the elder. From what I could find, somebody beheaded the elder, and then someone else ran door to door. I don't know when this happened. It was, I'm assuming, the 1700s, 1800s, beginning of imperialism in Philippines. I don't know. Ran door to door screaming, Olo Nanapo! Olo Nanapo! And that's how the city got its name. If you put it into Tagalog, it said Olo Ngapo, which becomes Owangapo as it's spelled today. Jerusalem is one of the oldest cities in the world. However, most records of its name have stayed pretty consistent through time. There's arguments about an Egyptian tablet of enemies with the name of a city, Rushalem, but Jerusalem might or might not have really been a big deal yet. I don't know. From what I read, there are two possible origins of Jerusalem, or one that feeds into the other. You'll see what I mean. One is from the Semitic Irishalem, which means house of Shalem. Shalem was the god of the dusk in the Near Eastern pantheon, and it's from his name that words like shalom and the Arabic salam come from. He was associated with peace in some way, and Jerusalem was his city, was his where he was as a god. The second origin is the biblical origin, Yerushalem, which means abode of peace. So the other one led into meaning place of peace, and this one just means place of peace to begin with. And that first word, Yera, is a reference to Abraham, the place where he was going to sacrifice Isaac. God told him to name Yera. Next is Ephesus. Ephesus comes to us through Latin, which comes from Greek, which comes from Hittite, and by the time you get back there, it doesn't sound like Ephesus anymore. It sounds like Apasha, which, being as it's a very old city, it's 3 millennia old, it means new city. So, I guess it was new at some point. Thebes gets its name ultimately from the Egyptian city, which was also basically called Thebes. Today that city is called Luxor, but it was the capital of Egypt, so I guess the Greeks decided to name their city after an important city in Egypt. In the Iliad, to tell them apart, the one in Greece is called the Seven-Gated Thebes, and the one in Egypt is called the 100-Gated Thebes. But today, it's the only Thebes, because the one in Egypt changed its name. So what do we call it now? Okay, the next one is Manchester. The Chester part comes from the Latin castra, which means fort. And then man comes from a Brittonic word, mam, which either means mother, in reference to the goddess of the river that was there, or breast. Apparently there's a hill that's particularly breast-shaped. Now, I think most hills are breast-shaped when you're laying on the ground, but that one must have been so breast-shaped that multiple people looked at it and said, hey, I think that looks like a tit, doesn't it, Mike? That's not how they spoke in, 0 AD, but be that as it may, it That means Manchester, in either origin, is related to the word mammal. I think that's fun. Next is Liverpool. The earliest example of that name is 1130. Liverpool is how I'm going to pronounce that. I'm not very good at pronouncing Middle English, but it means pool of muddy water. So that last part is pool, like a pool, and then that first part meant like mud, basically. So, unfortunately, it's a pool of muddy water. Would you rather live in Manchester or Liverpool? Timbuktu. It's a city with a bunch of different spellings in its history, and being as it was this kind of distant, cryptic, extreme southern part of the known world, as well as being an Arabic university big brain powerhouse, it was kind of shrouded in mystery for a long time. So the Wikipedia page for Timbuktu gives 4 possible origins. 3 of them are pretty standard. There's small dunes is proposed by somebody. There's 2 that basically mean a hollow place, because apparently it's down in kind of a, not a valley, but like a sunken part of the desert. And then there's this weird one that apparently there were some Arabic traders that brought a slave woman there, and her name was Timbuktu, which in some way meant having a lump. I don't want to know, but apparently that's how the city got its name, according to at least one Arabic source. Okay, leaving the old world, we're going to hit Intercourse, Pennsylvania. Now, Intercourse apparently gets its name because there is a junction between 2 major roads there, one going from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia, the other one going from Erie, Lake Erie, to the south. That's kind of weak for me. There's a lot of cities that are just kind of crossroads for other cities, and they aren't named Intercourse. Kind of lazy, but I think it's even though I just said it doesn't sound very cool, it's more believable than apparently the second theory is that there was this racetrack just outside of town, and on the side of it said Intercourse, so it became the name of the city. I think it has more to do with conjoining roads. Next is Fairfield. Fairfield, Ohio, the place of my birth. It just means beautiful field. Lots of places are just kind of named Fairfield. It's almost a placeholder. There's a township in the county that Fairfield City is in that was Fairfield Township. That's it. That's about it. It doesn't have a deep etymology. Unlike Hamilton, the city just to its north that I've also lived in, the place of my mother's birth, it's named after Alexander Hamilton. And Alexander Hamilton gets his name from a now abandoned village in England which would have been called Hamildun in Old English, and that means crooked hill. So I don't think that hill necessarily looked like a breast, but maybe it did. And finally, we have Winslow, Arizona, standing on the corners. Winslow, Arizona gets its name from Edward Winslow, who was a railroad official, and Edward Winslow got his last name from a city in England, which is kind of a weird roundabout thing that means friendly hill. Is that one also a breast? Thank you for watching, Ling King. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and have a great day. Bye-bye.